issue that cut the deepest in the city of Chicago. This is 1972, and this is now 2009, almost 2010, and it ain't that different. So maybe we were right to choose racism. So we open the film with what appears to be a single fight between a white boxer and a black boxer. It's actually about 4 fights cut together. It's kind of a heavy-handed thing of the races fighting. I'm actually narrating it for an oral historian. So the trick bag, I guess, was determined.
Do you know what fight that was? Harry was just asking.
Yeah, it was 4 different fights at Bessemer Park. But the Park District, Chicago Park District had a boxing program that was run by Tony Zale. Really? Yeah. You know, the middleweight. I think he was the champion of the world.
He was. Graziano, their whole series of fights.
Yeah. I'm narrating. I said a lot. Were you listening? I said a huge amount already. Okay. I'm not listening. Okay. I'm doing it. So I did voiceover for this. One of the main things that Andrew did was dealing with white gangs. And where the racism fit in was that the white gangs were fighting the black gangs, and the black gangs the Spanish gangs, and the Spanish gangs the white gangs, and it was interesting. There was a lot of crossover in the neighborhoods. Sometimes you had Spanish guys and white gangs, and it was confusing to everybody. And what we hoped to do, we weren't working alone. We had the whole youth culture working with us. We had all the men and women coming back from Vietnam working with us, who were getting new ideas and picking up on the idea that staying in these small ethnic enclaves and protecting the turf was maybe not the way to do it. You know, it was in the music of the day, different strokes for different folks, and all the get-together songs, the United We Stand, Divided We Fall, all the Sly and the Family Stone stuff. So what we see in the film is the bulk of the people. You know what? I'm not sure whether it's the bulk or not. I have to do a head count. A number of the people who speak in the film were touched by rising and banging, and were what in the revolutionary days we would call cadre, people who were starting to understand what we were talking about, helping us to understand what we were talking about.
They were the ones who had to deal with each other every day, on the street, in the parks, and at the schools.
Yeah, this is one of these kids were all talking. Yeah. So while this film is what filmmakers would call talking heads, I think it's put together in a really interesting way. I'm sure all filmmakers would say this about their own work, but I feel if you pull out any one shot of it, the whole thing comes down like a house of cards.
Things just have to break down because you get just conditions of the same. They have to survive and stop.
So, and these opening sequences with the gang kids, we really didn't know anybody, but we had other people from Rising Angry with us, and we just asked questions. I think it's important that we were with the angry people because the kids trusted us. I've always thought that one of the problems with documentary and trying to show reality, turning a camera on somebody, is that it changes the dynamic immediately. Put a microphone there, people are worried what they're going to say and start thinking twice about the words that they're going to draw. This man on the street stuff, I don't really believe, because the man in the street, the woman in the street doesn't really know what the filmmaker is going to do with the footage. And I think it's everybody's fear, including my own, when I'm in that situation, that it's going to be made a fool of. So what we tried to break that down in the making of the film. In one way we did it was talking to friends, the people that we knew, that they had total trust with. Another way was in the actual shooting of it. I acted as the camera operator as well. The camera was rarely on the tripod. It was on my shoulder with the eyepiece up to my right eye, while I kept my left eye fully open, holding the camera on my right shoulder with my right hand and gesturing as I normally would when I talk, when I engage people in conversation, gesturing with my left hand. So that some of it's extra shaky, some of it's a little dicey on the focus, but I think it's worth it for how we were able to persuade people to talk in a normal way. You know, the sweet tone, swearing, just talk to us like we'd be talking to each other. And I think it shows. One of the young people, only a few years younger than me, I guess, who I met who really influenced me a lot was a kid who had been thrown out of high school in Chicago, in the neighborhood where Martin Luther King marched in 1965, was thrown out of school for race agitation and had a choice of going to jail for some other crime he committed or going into the service. He chose the service. White racist kid, Irish kid from the south side of Chicago, found himself identifying a lot more with the black kids in the service. They wore the same clothes, they talked the same jargon, they listened to the same music, had similar concerns, whereas the white people that he met were cowboys and farmers and didn't have anything to do with his life. So he ended up relating a lot to the blacks, so that when he got out, he was a different guy. But not so different that he would leave his neighborhood, but he became a calming influence in a way, saying, hey, all this racist stuff and throwing bricks at civil rights, that people were marching for civil rights, that's not cool anymore. I think that was happening all over the place. Rising Up Angry didn't start that. Rising Up Angry was just tapping on the energy that was out there. This is one of my favorite sequences in the film because we're shooting in what they call in Chicago garden carpet, even though there was only asphalt and concrete all around it. There was no garden for about a block. In fact, this apartment faced on an alley. Two of the guys in this scene, one of the guys in this scene lives in the apartment we're shooting in. Another guy lives above it on the first floor, and I, whom doing the filming, live on the second floor. These guys are all friends of mine, and so I can say there was, they knew I wasn't going to mess them up. If anything, I was going to make them sound better than they really sounded. His name is Dick. I don't remember his last name. I didn't know him very well, but he was a vet. There's a nice picture of him and Holly on the wall right there.
As you find yourself just not being able to cope with all the bullshit, you can't cope with the fact that you have to get up.
I mean, there's nothing said in this movie that you haven't seen or heard someplace else. I mean, the story that Al Metzger, the guy with the goatee, redheaded guy, tells about, so he says, call me nigger. I mean, we've heard that. I mean, we've heard that intellectually. We heard Norman Mailer 10 years before writes a book about the white Negro.
And I was just kind of sitting there talking with my partners, and this happened.
Interestingly, this guy Al worked at Schwinn Bicycle Company, where I recently ran into a guy that was there at the same time he was. And that comes up in the next scene, though. This is the line that gets the most response when we show this thing, as we've been doing now for 35 years. That was the basis, really, of the race line and rising up anger. Where your head's at, not what color you are.
People need jobs to live.
We're all in the same boat. I mean, again, it's simplistic, not anything new, not revolutionary in the sense that we're saying it for the first time, but revolutionary in the way that the system that we live under, the economic system works. So here's Schwinn Bicycle. So recently, where I work, in my workplace, I work with lots of teamsters, and we move around from place to place. And I had about an hour, 15, hour and a half ride to a location where we were working on a movie. And I'm making conversation with the driver, a middle-aged Italian guy that's grown up on the north side of Chicago, and near the Schwinn, where I happen to know where the Schwinn factory was. So I was just in making conversation while I was going through rush hour traffic. I asked him if he knew anybody who worked at Schwinn, and it turned out that he worked at Schwinn himself. And so I mentioned Al and the people that I knew that were there and rising up anger, and he knew exactly what I was talking about. And while he wasn't a big joint or anything, and rising up anger was not the first time that he thought about stuff. He agreed to what was going on. He was going down to the park for integrated music downtown Chicago. And he said to keep him out of trouble, his father had sent him to a YMCA camp that was citywide, so that he ended up going to camp with lots of black kids, which weren't in his neighborhood, that he didn't go to school with, that he would have no other exposure into them. And he said everything was really cool with them, and there was no problem for him, this thing of race. So he'd already made the leap, this guy. He didn't really need Rising Up Anger to help him along. But he would have been nice to have along with us. I loved it when we ended up pulling into the parking lot where we were going, where the work trucks were. He said it was quite a time for him, and I agreed. And he said, we stopped the goddamn war. And he's right, I think we did. I feel badly that the youth of the United States has allowed wars like Vietnam to continue to go on. That first Gulf War and this Iraqi War. And now Afghanistan. Who knows what comes next? talk about being in the same boat. And now the women workers, most of them are health workers, I believe. Ironically, the woman Lydia who's talking now died of AIDS sometime after this. I'm not sure how she contracted it, but this is where we finally wrap it up and talk about the system and what that trick bag is and how it works. The trick bag being the racism, but why have racism? To whose value does it work? And again, it's pretty simplistic, but if you haven't, excuse me? Hey, don't fuck yourself, Michael. If anybody's bored with this, we're watching the movie. Really? Put that on his disc. Go fuck yourself, Michael. He wants his credit on this. So, it comes down to, it was the way the Rising of Bank worked. We didn't want to be rhetorical. Some of us had come out of the anti-war movement where it was all this rhetoric being thrown around, particularly the SDS people. And we wanted to talk to people the way that people thought and the way that people thought. A number of us had grown up in neighborhoods in Chicago, and we kind of knew the language. And so when we're talking about imperialism, I mean, we might not call it by name. We didn't talk about the isms as much as, say, the college publications did. So here's Soledad, who's a nurse, who's Pam, who worked in a free health clinic.
They're fighting for the crumbs that are left, and they can give white people a little bit more, then they got them people divided,
There's the trick bag right there.
Well, I got my education.
What we try and do in almost all the sequences is include a person of color and sort of put them in a situation of saying, that's sort of what we're looking for from you white people, that you understand what the situation is, that it's not an all-white world. Look around. I think the most amazing part of the Obama movement and the presidency is simply the fact that he's biracial, and so that ain't a strange thing anymore. It's people of color and white people together. In a way, that's what it's all about. Now let the music speak for itself. There's just a series of pictures that some, I don't think any of them were in the newspaper, but these are just people, And again, you'll see a mix. It's not by accident that you occasionally see people of color, because that's what we were looking. That's what we were about. Two babies that came out of our collective group. Nate and Leela. Michael sometimes complains that why we didn't put our names on it, but it's a collective effort. I've made other films, and it's the people that are in the films that make the film for you. You don't really make the film. And again, I'm not the first person that thought that there's lots of people, filmmakers around and collectors. You ever seen that? Are you still on? We started we started filming in 71 or 72. No, it had to be 72. It's when I joined the Cartemplin Collective that helped us make this. And I had a semester as a filmmaker in residence at Columbia College. And actually, that ended badly because they couldn't deal with the idea that we weren't going to take credits on it, that it was going to be collectively made. And since I was the filmmaker in residence, they wanted my name on it, and I wouldn't take my name on it. And I always brought other people with me when we did the classes, and they could not deal with that. And we ended up only getting half the money that they put forward for it. So we shot in around 1972. And then there was a disastrous fire where the film was stored, and the negative all burned up. What happens in this kind of filmmaking, this is before there's digital work, is you shoot on negative film, then you shine a light through that and strike a print of that negative, which you cut up and arrange and rearrange and put the front and the back and the back and the front, and finally when you've got it the way you want, you mark up that print, which you call a work print, and go back into the original negative that hasn't been touched and pick out these nice, clean, sharp images that you've drawn crayons and stuff over. Well, that nice, sharp, clean image burned up, melted in the fire, and we couldn't use it. So we decided that we would make a print from this messy work print. And it came actually, I decided to do that. Most times when something like that happens, you just give it up and start again. But I come earlier from a group called the Newsreel that made our films that way. This was, again, before videotape. And we were filming anti-war demonstrations and getting the films actually done and made within a week. And the only way you could do that was not by playing with the negatives. So we would show them all around, and you could see all the cuts and everything. And I also realized that even if it was a clean print, once it's projected, it starts getting dirty. I mean, we'd go into some public school and grab their projector, and it hadn't been cleaned in years, and it runs a great big scratch down the middle. So that it's not a problem. In fact, these days, they invent that. When they want to make something that go up on MTV, they put all that stuff on there. So I decided to be bold and do that, partly because of my experience with newsreel, and it worked. It worked. Nobody ever... Newsreel, yeah. This is a group, when I do my big interview with you, I'll tell you how Newsreel led me to Rising Up Angry.
Well, good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Oh, so I'm sorry. So we finally finished this film in 1975. So the first time anyone saw it was 1975, even though we'd shot it. And in fact, by that time, Rising Up Angry was sort of fading away. Not coincidental, coincidental with the end of the war in Vietnam.
You mentioned the people involved who were in this country?
No, forever. When I say there was input from Rising Up Angry, not only the people who were the leadership of Rising Up Angry, who would see it and comment on it, but also in the filmmaking collective, we were all very open about lending support. And there was I think the original film started with the story about you have black people in your house, so you're going to have to get rid of them. And one of my co-workers, comrades at the filmmaking collective, Cartemplin, said, why don't you lure people in with the boxing match? That's really a good way to start. So that's what we did. So that's part of the collective making of it. But if you got more questions on it.
I think there's nothing like, I love it.
it's one of those films that's it's like Basketball Diaries. It was written and directed by a guy that grew up in Astoria, New York. I think it's Queens. Rising up angry, white lightning kind of kids. In the big leagues with blacks and Latins. Yet one of their key guys is a black father. They're talking about getting niggers and stuff, and it's a black guy. He's their best friend with him, and he's going along with them. It made me think a lot of that. I don't know if you watch any movies.